Okay, so moving on to our next presenter, we are going to be hearing from David Emery from the Supply Chain Sustainability School. David is an architectural technologist with more than 40 years experience. He's also a very experienced speaker on the subjects of BIM, DFMA and off-site construction. In fact, David participated, and we're not going to try and remember how long ago, in our successful simulcast event that we did both in London and Leeds a few years ago. After 15 years of running his own company, Vertex, he recently joined the Supply Chain Sustainability School as their offsite and digital consultant. And he will be giving an overview of the Supply Chain Sustainability School, or even the Supply Chain Sustainability School, a tour of their digital resources and how their new digital training needs assessment tool works. So, David, I will let you share the screen, and over to you.
Thank you, Duncan. Let's see if this works. So hopefully you're now seeing my slide set.
We are, yes.
Okay, thanks very much. Yeah, as Duncan said, what I want to talk about today is a project I've been involved with for about a year in my capacity with the Supply Chain Sustainability School, a CITB funded project called Downloading a Digital Mindset. And we've seen today, and we continue to see at other events, some fantastic digital innovations coming into our industry that I'm sure will make our industry more efficient and more cost effective and a greater place to work. But one of our problems, I think, is that the senior people in our industry, business owners, industry leaders, even department heads, perhaps struggle sometimes to grapple with leading digital innovation and leading digital change. So the essence of the project I'm going to talk to you about is the support that we can give if you are a digital leader in your industry on how to grapple the problems of change and innovation in your industry. But if I can just spend 60 seconds recounting, if you like, my journey to here today. As Duncan said, I was previously had my company Vertex for 15 years. Prior to that, I worked in architecture and specifically in the house building sector. I think I was doing BIM, or what the nearest equivalent to it, about 35 years ago. The first computer I got my hands on actually did design buildings in 3D, despite running on a floppy disk. As you can imagine, it had its limitations back then. But I've been seriously modelling and embedding data in buildings since around, well, over 20 years. And it was on that basis I set up Vertex in 2006. And I believe we helped deliver the first 5D BIM projects in the UK. And following that, I've done talks and presentations to many hundreds of organisations. But I recently, the Supply Chain Sustainability School had been a client of mine for 6 or 7 years, but we've been working much more closely together specifically on this digital project. And I recently became a full-time member of the team, which I'm delighted about. So the Supply Chain Sustainability School, for those who don't know, it's really created by the industry for the benefit of the industry. So around 2008, 9, 10, something of that era, a couple of the major tier 1 contractors began to feel that if they could help upskill the entire supply chain, upskill the industry, that would be good for everyone. And from the germ of that idea has been formed the school. So in essence, it's an organisation that's funded by the major players of the industry in order to be able to deliver support and guidance and training to the lower orders, if I can put it that way without sounding offensive. But the school's mission, in essence, is to be a world-class collaboration that enables a more sustainable built environment. And the way the school will do that is by driving efficiency through training and development of individuals and businesses, reducing waste and rework and that sort of thing. So the way that it works is that it is a vast repository of learning materials, not just around BIM and digital, but across a range of major topics such as sustainability, management, lean construction, things like modern day slavery, fairness, inclusion and respect. And whilst users can really dip in and out randomly to our resources, there is a much better way of doing that, where we use tools to assess the supply chain members' competence in certain topics. And on the strength of what they tell us about what they know and what they don't know, we can create customized learning pathways for them to help them move up to the next level. And you can see we've got some quite impressive statistics. We've got around 15,000 companies have benefited from the school platform, and we've got something over 50,000 individuals who've at some time or other used our resources, which sounds an awful lot, but I think if you put that in the context of an industry that employs probably nearer 4 million individuals, we haven't quite conquered the world yet, but watch this space. As I said, the school is funded by what we call partners. These are some major companies that hopefully you'll see in a moment, a few familiar names appearing on the screen. Well, what do these people get for their money? First of all, there's an element of philanthropy, I guess, in doing good for the industry as a whole. But as a partner, each of these businesses has access to a range of value offerings from the school. Particularly, we can develop particular workshops and events on their behalf. They can have so many of those a year. They get to sit on the leadership groups within the school and actually help us shape the content of our materials and give us a steer on the direction around new topics that we should be taking part in, and so on and so on. But what they also get is the opportunity to offer our learning resources to their supply chain members. If their supply chain members then do agree to go through some of the learning materials, not only do the supply chain members themselves get a badge at the end of it, a digital badge, if you like, but that qualification is visible to their tier one customers. So we have the opportunity here to assess supply chain members for the benefit of a range of major tier one partners. And what that means to the supply chain members is very often they would have to go through arduous pre-qualification assessments for every individual tier one contractor. In many cases now, a single learning pathway through a set of topics in the school will, if you like, pre-qualify them for a wide range of tier one contractors. So we've developed the digital part of the school's resources quite extensively in the last year, and the mission really is to accelerate the adoption of digital tech in our industry, which my subjective impression is that we are some way behind almost every other sector in driving efficiency through the use of digital innovation and technology. So everything that is available to you, and it is available to you, anybody on the call, is CPD accredited. It's confidential in the sense that you will create an account and you will be the owner of any awards and qualifications you get. But on the other hand, if you want to share that qualification or badges with some of your customers, we can do that too. And it's free at the point of use. So that's great for everyone. We've got 7 key topic areas. Sustainability is one. Very interested in the previous presentation, and I'd like a further conversation, as I'm sure my colleagues would. My own particular interests are in off-site construction and, of course, digital. What do we create? Well, when I first started working with the supply chain school about 7 years ago, most of my work for them was appearing at events and workshops and supplier days and delivering presentations or facilitating workshops in the days pre-COVID. And the school in those days used to organise something like 300 live events all over the UK every single year. And of course, that came to a juddering halt last March. So what we have managed to do I think very successfully, is to adapt our business to an online version of what we did before. So we still deliver all sorts of workshops and training events, anything from, a 45-minute lunch and learn webinar. We very often do 2 to 3 hour interactive workshops online, and much larger and longer events too. And remarkably, the statistics have shown that that was a really good decision. So every one of our 25 or so in the team has worked full-time for the entire year. Nobody's been furloughed. All the statistics show that the use of our resources and that the attendance at all our events has increased, possibly because people have had more time and have had to travel less, but nevertheless, it's shown on any measure a degree of improvement over the year. So those sort of events are still available, albeit for the time being online. We have numerous e-learning modules, web pages and links, toolkits, and lots of video shorts, if you like, and longer pieces. In fact, just before I go on to that, I think it's important to say how do we create these materials? And so I've been involved on 2 major projects with the school recently. One is developing the digital content I'm going to talk about today, but another was in developing content for the offsite sector. So we created a suite of learning materials for anybody in what I'd call the traditional construction industry who wanted to transition towards offsite and modern methods of construction. And in both these cases, because we're blessed with some very high level members, that enables us to reach out to the experts, if you like, in any particular field and have them help us shape the materials. So typically on the digital project, for example, we will find out what does our industry need to know in terms of digital management, digital leadership. We can then develop learning resources around that. Our partners will work with us, quality check them, audit them, wordsmith them, and so on. And then on top of that, they'll very often provide great case studies or white papers or videos or whatever it is to help us shape the content. So we feel that anything that we create has been created with the cooperation and support of the industry, the best in the industry. It's been quality checked by them, and it's laser focused. So the downloading a digital mindset in particular, which I wanted to talk about today, the outputs really were on the left there, a very large online resource library. I'll come to the other things in a moment. The project was largely funded by CITB. There was a sticky moment in the middle of the project when CITB had a little bit of a crisis and withdrew the funding, but we at the Supply Chain School felt it was so important to continue the work that the school bankrolled the project until CITB were able to come back on board. We worked with some of the delivery team on the Thames Tideway project, which is this huge sewer that's being built under the entire width of London. So a major project where some of the participants, such as Skanska and Costain, were aware of some of the benefits of investing in digital process and actually had examples of where that had worked. They also had examples of where digital innovation had failed for various reasons, and they were very, very willing to share that with us, and they were the people who helped us shape the material. We were also supported by 2 lecturers at University College London, and I'll talk in a little while about how they will help us in the delivery as we move forward. So up in the top left corner, what we created was an online resource library of digital specific materials, something like 200, I believe, individual resources. We created what we call an online TNA. This is a training needs assessment. So as I'll show you in a moment, whereas an individual can go onto our website and freely explore all the content that's available there, if they take an online assessment, which is a series of plain language questions, that will help us understand where the gaps in their digital knowledge and skills are. And the algorithms on the school's website will then, as a result of what they tell us they know, will then laser focus some learning materials and give them, if you like, a learning pathway of materials appropriate to their level of knowledge. The online DMA, the digital maturity assessment, really is the same thing as the training needs assessment. But if you think of the training needs assessment as being for an individual, the maturity assessment is more at a corporate level. And you see the spider diagram is a typical output from that kind of research, which compares the overall knowledge that you claim to have with the average of the other partners in the school, so you can compare yourself. We created a series of 5 e-learning modules covering such things as digital leadership, how to make the business case for investing in digital, the importance of cybersecurity, which was a remarkable piece that showed some incredibly worrying facts about how big a problem you can have without proper cybersecurity, and a few others as well. And another part of the resources was so what we call digital bite videos. These are very short videos where we've talked to industry experts about some of the innovations they've implemented, and that ranged from a whole series of things from additive or 3D printing through to use of telematics on site and wearable technology. And I believe from talking to Duncan, you've already had in a previous event Saxi, who is the lady who can put sensors on infrastructure and detect movement of 2 millimeters from satellites whirring around in space. So we feel we've really got the industry experts to give their time freely, and have come up with some great content for us. So as well as the ability to roam the content freely, and also the ability to go through a training needs assessment and be presented with a suite of materials, we've also created a digital leadership course, if you like, and I presented the first introductory module yesterday, the pilot one, to staff from Costain. So now that they've done that, they will go through both their individual and corporate assessments. They will then go through 4 of our e-learning modules. We'll then give them some additional learning resources, probably aimed at their answers in the skills assessment. Then we ask them to do some pre-reading. So our ladies who were from UCL use the Harvard Business School method of workshopping. So it's learning by taking real-world projects and workshopping them, if you like. So we'll be asking our students to pre-read 2 case studies, both of which, by the way, are genuine case studies from team members working on the Tideway project and some of the difficulties they've had in implementing digital innovation. So they then go through those that workshop. We then ask them to reassess their skills, and I'm not sure if it's conditional that they show an improvement, but at the end of it all, they'll get a digital leadership badge. They'll become a qualified digital leader, in other words. And I think, you know, CITB, who funded this, and many of us in the industry really feel that, you know, there is a very great difference between a traditional business leader and a digital leader. We need to develop some new skill sets, and actually identifying what those skills are is the first step in that process. So what I'd like to do is show you some of the resources and the assessment tool. So I'm going to try and jump across to a browser, which I hope you're seeing. Duncan, can you shout to me if you're seeing a browser now?
It's been very good on mute. Yes, I can see it.
Thank you so much. So anybody watching this call, you're very welcome to go on to supplychainschool.co.uk and browse and take advantage of the resources here. You'll see that these are the main topics that we can support you with. Down in the bottom left is digital. Until very recently, that was our BIM section, but my sense is that whereas for many years BIM has been, if you like, a core topic of its own on its own right, I now perceive it as being part of a much bigger digital revolution in construction. And I think the previous speaker's example, where there's lots of great data and information that can be extracted from properly assembled BIM models. So BIM is really at the core of many innovations in our industry, but it's not the only one. So if you wanted to go and look at the digital section, obviously you can just follow the hyperlinks and scroll down, and there's content available right there for you to see. You'll see that there are buttons prompting you all the time to take those self-assessments, and you'll see why in a moment. But there's nothing to stop you just going through and having a look at what resources have we got, for example, about digital leadership. And here we can offer quite a lot to you, from videos and downloads and case studies, etc. But ideally, what we'd like you to do is actually to sign up. You can see that I'm signed in as David. That gives you a dashboard. Here's my dashboard. This is a dummy account, effectively. And when you sign up, the system will prompt you to sell it. What areas of interest do you have? What is your industry and what sectors do you work in? And you can see that I've practically ticked every box, as you can see. So I'm really interested in digital and offsite, and you can see that I've actually taken some assessments. So if I show you what a digital assessment looks like, it is a series of plain language questions, in effect. And what we're trying to gauge from your response is how well versed you are in any particular subtopic. So, what do you know about collaboration in digital innovation? Do you understand how to make an investment, or how to assess whether an investment is good, how to predict your return on investment, and so on and so on. And if you answer these truthfully and honestly, that's the best thing you can do. Remember, this is private to you, but depending on what answers you give us here, the algorithms behind the scene will then point you to some proper learning materials. I won't dwell on all of these, but what you effectively do is submit your answers, and then a suite of learning materials will come up for you. What will probably happen now is, oh no, usually it says I've logged out or I've timed out. So based on the actions I've given it, it's going to now give me a learning plan. And here you can see there's a suite of materials. So that is a document somewhere. It thinks I have intermediate knowledge of that particular topic. Some of them will be web links, some of them will be videos, etc., etc. And as you work through each of those, they'll automatically be ticked off there. And when you've completed that, if you go back to your dashboard, you'll find that there's a certificate there. Well, the importance of the certificate is, first of all, obviously it's something for you to be proud of, hopefully. But if you are employed, if you're an employee of a bigger organisation, your employer will know that you've achieved a certain standard. And the collective ability of the staff in an organisation, if I can put it that way, can also be displayed to your customers. So the tier one membership partners rather can have an overview of the skills of their supply chain companies. One other thing we can do with these tools is actually create some custom learning pathways. So for example, if you were a tier one construction company and you were about to start work on, for example, a nuclear project, there would be certain things that anybody coming onto that site would have to know, and indeed would not be able to access the site without that knowledge. So by us creating a learning pathway that anybody who's got to go on that site has to go through, and they will only get the badge if they've gone through it, that's a way of reassuring the tier one customer that that organisation has undertaken the appropriate learning. So I think I've covered all I wanted to, Duncan. I think we've got maybe 2 minutes left, but hopefully that's given you an overview of what we're up to. Do encourage you to have a look at the resources. It's supplychainschool.co.uk, and I'm David at supplychainschool.co.uk for any questions. Thanks, Duncan.
Thank you very much, David. That was really good. I've been feverishly sharing links on our Twitter feed with Supply Chain Sustainability School's digital resources. Also, which was interesting bits, yesterday the UK BIM Alliance ran an infrastructure themed conference, and Tideway were presenting, and they were talking about all the work they've been doing with yourselves and Costain in particular at developing digital tools and the benefits that that's generated for the project and the fact that it's publicly available. So it's great to see that being advertised again by yourself. And equally, and I know it was after we did the joint event with yourself where you were down in London and we had people in London, our simulcast, but SACTHI has also been and presented on that, using Eurosat data to monitor buildings and ground movements from space, which again is pretty phenomenal technology that is now becoming more and more available to the industry if it's relevant to be used. So thank you very much for all of that.